Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Surgical Utopia. Today I'll be hosting to you a video on the pathogenesis of the cyst formation. So there are basically three processes that occurs in the pathogenesis of the cyst formation. The first one is initiation. The second step is cyst formation. And the third step is enlargement or the expansion of cyst. So we will discuss about the first process, that is how a cyst formation starts, that is the initiation of a cyst. There are multiple factors responsible for the start or the initiation of the cyst formation, and this depends on the types of cyst, but mostly a chronic low-grade infection which invades the tissue or the pulp of the tooth and causes the activation of the dormant cells of the tooth. For example, the cell rest of molasses or the cell rest of Serres, and this causes the initiation of the cystic formation. After the invasion of the infection, the cyst formation occurs. In this, the cystic cavity gets lined by the stratified squamous epithelium, and because of the lining of this stratified squamous epithelium, the cells in the periphery are supplied by the rich source of blood, whereas the cells lying in the center get devoid of the nutrition and there is lack of nutrition, because of which the cells in the center will tend to desquamate, and the desquamation of the cells in the center will produce a fluid which has the higher osmolarity as compared to the serum or the surrounding fluid. And now the desquamated cell will lie in the center and it will be surrounded by the epithelial cell layers in the periphery. The layer of the epithelial cell proliferation is considered to be a protective mechanism by which the infective process or the infection from the tooth is isolated from the surrounding structures, and it prevents its invasion further into the bone or into the surrounding structures. Thereby, the infection is confined to a particular area only. So now we have a cyst which is formed, which will contain the central portion of the desquamated epithelial cells with fluid of higher osmolarity, and it is surrounded by a single layer or sometimes multiple layer of epithelial cell confining the infection to that area or to that particular region itself and preventing its spread further to the surrounding structures. After the cyst has formed, the cyst will now begin to enlarge, and cyst enlargement can take place with the help of multiple processes. For example, there may be increased volume of the cystic contents, there may be increased surface area of the cystic lining or the cystic sac, then displacement of the surrounding hard and soft tissue will occur in order to accommodate the growth of the cystic lesion. So here there will be displacement of the tooth, adjacent tooth, or there will be resorption of the bone, or sometimes compression of the nerves and vessels. And now in order to cyst to enlarge, as I have already mentioned, there may be a process for the increase in the volume of the cystic content, and as proposed by Laskin, there may be different procedures through which the cystic content may increase in its volume. The first is attraction of fluid into the cavity of the cyst. The second procedure is retention of fluid in the cavity. There is procedures for the cyst to retain the fluid that has occurred due to the desquamation of the epithelial cell in the center of the cyst. The cystic volume may also increase with the help of bone resorption in order to enable the growth of the cystic lesion within bone. So now we will discuss the mechanism by which the cystic enlargement can occur in each of the mentioned methods. First method is attraction of fluid into the cystic cavity. So as I have already said that there is desquamation of the epithelial cell in the center, and because of this desquamation of the epithelial cell, a fluid is collected in the center which has a higher osmolarity as compared to the surrounding serum. So in order for the attraction of the fluid from the surrounding structure to enter into the cystic sac or cystic cavity, osmotic theory was proposed by Main in 1970s, and according to this theory, the increased osmolarity of the fluid in the center of the cystic lesion will tend to draw fluid from the surrounding tissue spaces into the cystic cavity, as the osmotic pressure inside the cystic cavity is high as compared to the osmotic pressure of the fluid outside the cystic cavity. So by simple osmosis procedure, the fluid in the tissue spaces which has lower osmotic pressure will tend to move inside the cystic cavity, and this will result in the increased volume of the cystic cavity. The second procedure is that once the fluid from the outside has entered into the cell, and now the cystic lining will prevent the escape of the cystic fluid that was initially produced by the desquamation of the epithelial cell in the center, and the fluid that was drawn inside the cystic cavity through osmotic pressure. The cystic lining are semi-permeable in nature, and it prevents the fluid from escaping outside the cystic sac. Also, the fluid that has collected in the center of the cystic cavity has lack of access to the lymphatic system, and hence it will be unable to escape into the lymphatic system of the body. Other than this, the blockage of the lymphatic drainage to the lesion also increases the fluid retention within the lesion. Other than this, the procedure of transudation and exudation and hemorrhage through the mural vessels will also contribute to the enlargement of the cystic cavity, and all of this will combinedly increase the internal hydrostatic pressure of the cyst. Then there may be increased surface area due to mural growth of the cystic lining. So with the growth of the cystic lining, there will be increased surface area of this cyst, and it will contribute to the enlargement of the cyst. And the thickness and the rate of increase of the cystic lining will depend on the mitotic activity of the cells forming the cyst lining. This is mostly relevant for the OKC, that is the odontogenic keratocyst, in which the basal layer of the cyst is considered to have more mitotic activity as compared to that of the radicular cyst. Next method of cystic enlargement is through bone resorption, because the growth of any lesion will follow the path of least resistance. So if any area shows resistance to the growth of the cyst, the lesion will automatically deviate towards another area which is easy to penetrate or displace or resorb, and hence through that path of least resistance, the cyst or the lesion will make its way to enlarge and to grow. And in this case, the cystic lining will release factors which activates the osteoclast, that is the bone resorbing cells, and there will be more formation of the osteoclast cells which will enhance the resorption of the bone, and this will lead to the enlargement of the cyst. Another theory of cystic expansion was given by Harris in 1974. He divided the cystic enlargement into three headings. The first one is the mural growth, the second one is the hydrostatic growth, and the third one is the bone resorbing factors. So these are the same procedures that we have discussed earlier, but it was separately classified by Harris in 1974. So we shall quickly revise this under this heading also. The first one was mural growth. In this, there is enlargement of the cyst due to the active division at the periphery of the cystic lining, and this increases the surface area of the lining, thus enhancing the enlargement of the cyst. The second heading is that of the hydrostatic theory or hydrostatic pressure theory, and according to this theory is mainly proposed for the radicular cyst, the follicular cyst, the periodontal cyst, and due to decomposition of the epithelial cells and the leukocytes, due to plasma exudates and the active secretion of the goblet cells and mucus cells in the cystic lining, the osmolality of the cystic fluid becomes higher as compared to the surrounding serum, and because of this the hydrostatic internal pressure will become greater or higher as compared to the capillary pressure, which will further facilitate the tissue fluid diffusion into the cyst, and the cyst size increases. So this is the same theory which was earlier explained under the heading of retention of fluid within the cystic cavity. The next one is the bone resorbing factor theory, and according to this theory it states that the lining of the cyst is capable of releasing certain chemical factors such as prostaglandins and leukotrienes, the osteoclasts activating factors, and because of these chemicals the osteoclastic activity increases, the osteoclast formation increases, which in turn will result in the resorption of the bone and will facilitate the expansion of the cyst by providing the path of least resistance. So this was all about the cyst formation, the pathogenesis of how a cyst formation will occur. In the next video, we shall discuss about the various classifications proposed at different times for the different types of cyst. And until we meet next, it's a wrap for now. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye and take care.